Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to another issue of TBD with TLG. Our topic is always to be determined, and our law firm is the Trowbridge Law Group. And Jonathan Nieh and I are together today to discuss some very important stuff with you. Hello there, Jonathan.
Hi, Gene. How's it going?
It's going good. So for TBD, we decided to talk about Regulation A plus offerings because we've had quite a few calls about that in the past month. And those Reg A plus offerings are something that's ideally suited for the right type of client. And we've had some experience with clients being successful using Reg A plus offerings. And so I'm really going to turn it over to Jonathan because Jonathan is the one in the office who is most conversant with how this works, and he'll be able to give us the lowdown. And so I may jump in from now and then, but other than that, take it away, Jonathan.
Thanks, Gene. Yeah, I guess I am our firm's resident Reg A expert. So I guess I'll be the one talking about Reg A. And, if you want me to clarify stuff, you could kind of act as like the audience member and ask me questions on behalf of the people watching. So what is Regulation A? I like to think of it from kind of like a big picture perspective, right? So when you're talking about securities and selling securities and doing offerings, you have to go back to the basic rule, which is if you're selling a security, it has to be registered with the SEC or exempt. And Regulation A is just another exemption, right? So most of our clients are familiar with Regulation D. I mean, that's what we talk about the most because, most of the people raising money in the space are using Regulation D. But Regulation A is just another exemption that people can utilize. So to kind of give you an idea of where it falls in this, private versus public offering space, it's kind of like a spectrum, right? So on one side, there's completely private offerings under Regulation D, Rule 506B, right, where you can't advertise. You can only bring in investors that you have a pre-existing and substantive relationship with, versus completely public side, which is, like companies that are selling their securities on the stock market, companies that are public, companies that have done public offerings like Apple, Facebook, Twitter, all those companies. Those are public companies, and anybody could go, buy their securities on the stock market. Where does Regulation A fit along in this? It's kind of in the middle. A lot of people call Regulation A like doing a mini IPO. So that's kind of where Regulation A fits in this, grand scheme of things. But getting into, the specific rules of Regulation A, I like to use Regulation D to kind of compare the two to kind of illustrate how Regulation A works and the rules that you have to follow when doing a Regulation A offering. So the differences between Regulation D and Regulation A, well, specifically, let's talk about Regulation D, Rule 506B, right? The one where you can't advertise. So Regulation A allows you to advertise, right? You could solicit your offering to people online, potentially. You could take in pretty much any investor, right? So under Regulation D, Rule 506B, investors have to be either accredited or sophisticated, up to 35 sophisticated investors. Regulation A doesn't have that requirement. You could bring in anybody, accredited, non-accredited, sophisticated, whoever. Anybody can invest in a Regulation A offering. Regulation D, there's no cap on the amount of money that you could raise. So you could raise, hundreds of millions of dollars potentially under Regulation D. But under Regulation A, there is a cap on the amount of money that you can raise. So, Regulation A plus, also known as Tier 2 offering, you could raise $50 million. Regulation A, Tier 1, you could raise $20 million. Some of the other differences, so under Regulation D, there's no approval process with the SEC. You do your offering, And then you file what's known as a Form D with the SEC, which is basically just putting the SEC on notice that you're raising money, but there's no requirement that SEC has to approve that, right? You just start raising money and you're good. However, for Regulation A, there is kind of like an approval process, right? You have to submit your offering documents to the SEC before you can start raising money. And they usually come back with comments. They have issues with some of the things that you're saying in your offering documents. So you have to make those changes. Goes back and forth several times. It could take, 6 months to a year before you finally get approval from the SEC. And then you can start raising money. So in that sense, it's kind of more like, doing a public offering, doing a registration, like a mini IPO. Another difference, so under Regulation A, you are required under Tier 2 to get a CPA or accounting firm to audit your financials. Under Regulation D, that's not required. You don't need to do an audit of your financials. And then another big thing that I think a lot of people don't talk about is ongoing reporting requirements. So if you do a Regulation A offering, you're required to do annual reports to the SEC. There isn't that requirement for Regulation D. So those are kind of like the main differences between the two. But to kind of, I guess, recap, the main points is Regulation A allows you to advertise, and you can advertise to anybody, right? So it doesn't matter whether or not they're accredited or not, or sophisticated. You can advertise to those people and potentially raise money from anybody. What else did I want to talk about? So I did mention Tier 1 and Tier 2. There's these like levels within Regulation A, also known as Regulation A and Regulation A plus. And there's an important distinction between the two. And I think, a lot of people kind of gloss over sometimes is the fact that, in addition to the cap on the amount of money that you could raise. So remember, Tier 1 is capped at $20 million, and then Tier 2 is capped at $50 million. One of the biggest differences, though, between the two is if you're doing a Tier 2 Regulation A plus offering, you actually are preempted from state law. So it's kind of like Reg D, right? Where when you do a Reg D offering, you don't really have to worry about specific state law from each state that you're raising money from. So what that means is if your exemption doesn't preempt state law, then obviously you have to follow each individual state's law that you're raising money from, and that could potentially lead to a lot of costs in compliance with each individual state. So Tier 2 preempts state law, but Tier 1, if you're doing a Tier 1 offering, that doesn't preempt state law. So if you do a Tier 1 offering and you're raising money from 10, 15 different states, you potentially have to go to each state and get approval from each state before you can start raising money from investors from those states. So it could potentially add up and cost a lot of money to do a Tier 1 offering. So generally speaking, if someone were to come to me and ask whether or not to do a Tier 1 versus a Tier 2, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be just do a Tier 2 offering. You might not need $50 million. You might be only looking for $20 million, but the cost of complying with 20 different states' laws is going to add up and not really be worth it. So that's it. That's basically it. I mean, Reg A, it's simple, right? Like I can explain it in 10, 15 minutes. But yeah, I mean, I think we should talk about who Regulation A is meant for and who it's not meant for.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. We get a client who calls us and says, we want to do an offering. Mm-hmm. And we go through the question and answer session with the client. And one of the things I ask first is, how much do you want to raise? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's a good question. If I want to raise $3 million, I don't need to do a Reg A. Mm-hmm. If I want to raise $100 million, I can't do a Reg A. Mm-hmm. So that's a qualifying question right there. The next question I ask is, do you want to advertise? If they don't want to advertise, well, let's have a better answer. Yes, I want to advertise, Gene. Well, then you really only have two choices: 506C, Reg A. Okay. So you put those two things together. How much do you want to raise, and do you have to advertise? And you get some feeling on whether they could do both. Let's say someone wants to do, as you said, 20 million. Well, that will work in Reg A. That'll work in 506, and they want to advertise. So that'll work in 506C and Regulation A plus, with the exception that, right, Jonathan, if we do 506, you can only take accredited investors.
Yep.
So the next question is, okay, so you need to advertise. You're going to raise $20 million. Do you want to limit your money raising to accredited investors? And if they say no, the path is set. The only way they can go is Reg A. So the people that we've seen that do Reg A are people who want to stand up in front of a group of people, a large group of people that they don't know. They don't have, they know that they're not all accredited, but they want to give them an opportunity to invest in their fund. The only game in town is Reg A. And didn't we have a call this week with someone, Jonathan? I'm trying to remember how many subscribers this person had on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think he has like 80 or 90,000 subscribers.
Okay, and so that was his question.
Yeah.
I want to put something out on my YouTube channel and let everyone who is a subscriber invest with me. Well, first of all, he doesn't have a pre-existing relationship with all those people. So 506B is gone. He could do that as long as he's only going to take accredited investors under 506C. But if he wants to take everyone, it's Reg A. And that's really the type of person I think that that we need. I'm not going to name any names, but when you go out and hear things on the radio and maybe in print or television of people who are raising money from everyone at any time, if you look deep into it, you'll find that that's probably going to be a Reg A plus offering. Or like this one company that's out there, it's raising money for their apartment fund up in the Northeast. They do say accredited investors only, so you know right away that that's 506C.
Yeah.
Did I get all that right?
Yeah, that was perfect. And you explained it probably better than I could. But I guess I want to highlight one thing that you kind of touched on is, sometimes we get calls from people that have never done an offering before, that never raised money before. And they, I heard about Reg A, I want to do Reg A. This is definitely not for people that are first timers, right? I mean, we talked about that guy with 90,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he could potentially reach out to his 90,000 subscribers. But honestly, from what I've seen, I don't even think that's enough. I think you need, way more followers to have a successful Reg A offering. You could look at the people that have done Reg A's, right? These are all public information. It's all published on SEC's website. You could see the people that have done it and have done successful Reg A offerings, and they probably have, millions of followers. So that's just something to keep in mind.
And you should have a track record, because this is not for the faint of heart. First of all, you're not going to do a specified offering, one property, because it's going to take, I'm going to suggest that it's going to take 4 to 6 months to get this done. I may be optimistic. I've heard other people say 6 months to a year, but I don't see that in real practice. I do see 4 to 6, 7 months. So it's not going to be for a specific offering. It's going to be for somewhat of a blind pool. Some of the Reg A offerings, Jonathan, you and I have seen are racehorses, intellectual property, solar panels, blind pools, and real estate. So it's not for a specific property. So I think you have to have someone to talk to before you start a Reg A. And then I think you have to have some sort of a track record in what you're going to raise your money for, or you'll just die on the vine. Another thing that would be good would be selling notes or selling paper, where people come in and they just want to yield, and then the sponsor takes the money and goes out and invests whatever they do. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I think, do you have any parting words before we close this episode of TBD?
Yeah, I mean, if people have more questions about, Reg A or Reg D, or just, securities offerings in general, feel free to reach out. I mean, we do free 30-minute consultations. If you go to our website, you can sign up for a free consultation, or, hit us up on Facebook, or write some comments here in the video. We're happy to engage and answer your questions. So.
Yeah, go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. And Jonathan, isn't it the case that we do have a YouTube video on Regulation A, or we're going to?
We have one that I did that's pretty short,
Okay.
like a quick overview of Reg A. I think it's there. But I mean, this one's going to be on our YouTube, right? So people are watching on YouTube right now.
Great. Well, that wraps up another episode of TBD with TLG, Gene Trowbridge and Jonathan Nieh saying